Embarrassing audio soundbite. All right. We're just gonna jump right into it. Hello, everyone. We're gonna cut that out because that's not working. Hopefully you can hear me. Sorry for the delayed start. It's been quite a journey trying to get everything working. I was at work this morning, and then everything stopped. And I raced over here to do the show. Super excited, buckled in, and then I got back and nothing at all was working. So like an XSplit, normally I can set it up so gameplay just automatically starts rolling when I swap to a new scene. It's not working and it's not auto playing. My music won't play, so that's why you didn't have music during the intro section. And yeah, so everything's kind of collapsing around me, but it's okay. I think we can brute force our way through it, and I can pull up individual clips and use that, so we can make it work. Well, you know, first world problems, we can manage it. But the headline of this episode already is just everything's broken, which is okay. You know, it keeps us honest, keeps us real. Hello everyone who came out. Oh yeah, don't worry. I tried turning it off and on again a lot. I updated drivers. I reinstalled audio drivers for this stupid audio Behringer thing. It's just, this is a very complicated setup. And the second that one thing breaks, everything breaks. It's kind of a house of cards, which is wonderful. It looks cool by itself, but the second you poke it, it just turns into chaos. So, basically what I want to do today, there's not a ton of news to go through. There's a little stuff here and there. We could look at like Red Dead Redemption 2, but the most interesting thing to me, like we've got time to look at Red Dead, and I've got time to figure out how to avoid their like copyright bots. So in the meantime, I want to talk about Assassin's Creed Odyssey because I've been playing it over the last couple days and I am quite impressed, and I want to share thoughts, answer questions, that type of things. So we'll run through it. I've put in about 15 hours. I wish it was more, but about 15 hours, and I've been really pleasantly surprised as to what it's been able to do. And what it's been able to do is pretty straightforward. It is almost a straight like a straight Origins clone in a way. Like this is the gameplay. This is the gameplay of Odyssey. They've redone a lot of stuff. So for instance, in the bottom left-hand corner, you can see they've completely redone how you manage abilities and things. And this ties into how they've doubled down on the RPG side of the game, where each of these abilities, like the bull rush, like the poison abilities, later on you can get fire added to your blaze. All of that stuff used to just be elemental damage you would have on a particular piece of equipment, like in Origins. But now in this, you actually have to enable it, and it has to be something that you want to use, something that you're enabling. The game is actually pretty tough. And it balances really, really well. Leveling is super important, and weapon levels are super important, because if you are just 2 levels behind where you're supposed to be, your weapon is going to be doing at least 100 points lower damage than your opponent's, and that makes a big deal. It's a huge factor. So it's very important, and you have to be very proactive. And when I say the game is huge, I mean it. This game is ridiculous. Like, it's stupid how big this thing is. That's what she said. It's just absolutely silly. It never stops. Like, I haven't, and I know this, saying this is going to start a lot but I don't care because it's true. I have not been this intimidated and daunted by a game since I played The Witcher 3 for the first time. Now, does that mean that this game is as good inherently as The Witcher 3 because of that? Not necessarily. What it does mean is that what this game is able to do is pretty damn impressive. This game is gigantic and it doesn't feel like filler. Every single side quest has a story attached to it, which, if you remember, back in 2015, they were talking about trying to make sure that every story would have its own, or every side quest would have its own story, and that you wouldn't just be doing things for the sake of doing things. And at the time, like, Syndicate had just come out. We thought that was ridiculous because you didn't do anything for a story purpose in Syndicate. Even the story missions were just kind of like, cuz. So to hear that at the time was just baffling. Now we see the effects of it because the last game that this team worked on was Syndicate, which is pretty crazy. As to whether or not I like it more than more than Origins, I would have to say I like it more than Origins, and that's saying something. One of the big things that helped me get along with Origins was that the setting was right up my alley. Like, I freaking love ancient Egypt. I was that nerd in like elementary school. Well, I was homeschooled, first of all, and so all my free time I would just spend reading Egyptology books. I freaking love that stuff, and so that really helped me. I'm not as into the Greek stuff, which I think says even more as to why this is so impressive, that I cannot stop playing. And I literally cannot foresee getting tired or bored with all the stuff that's in here. It's just ridiculous. I'm not a grindy player. I don't like just finding stuff for the sake of finding stuff. But for instance, I just did a side quest yesterday, where it was this old lady who's got a crazy sex drive, and she wants me to go and get ingredients for an elixir that's going to give her husband his macho back. So I go around and I get like the scrotum of a bear and like these weird plants out of the ocean, and then I bring them all back to her and I mix up this potion, and I have the option to just like hand it over, and the husband's like, oh, here we go again. I'm like 65. Don't make me do this. Or I can go and I can have my way with her to satisfy her, or I can go and do all of the, like, it's so intense and there's so many things going on that I can't wait to see what happens later on if that quality's been maintained. And not to mention, look how beautiful this is. Like, it's just gorgeous. This is playing on a PC, and I'm very impressed. Does it kind of feel like Ubisoft made a Witcher clone? In a way, I'll be perfectly honest, in a way, but in many ways, if they did a Witcher clone, they did a lot of the stuff that The Witcher did badly, they do very well. Now, a lot of the stuff that The Witcher did very well, they don't quite get there. They're close, like they're getting there. By next game, I can't even imagine what it's going to be like. But, like, for instance, navigation. One of my big criticisms of The Witcher 3 was the navigation, how poorly all of the characters controlled. Geralt always felt like he was a kite on a small string in the middle of a hurricane. Like, you couldn't control him. He's running all around. You're trying to tame this thing down. Like, he moved too fast for his own good. With Origins, they've got that balanced really, really well. Of course, there's the climbing mechanics, the parkour stuff, which used to be the selling point of an Assassin's Creed game. Now, it's just holding down shift while running. Sprinting and running is automatically set. Oh, this is hilarious. You know what? I won't spoil this. You know what? I will, because there's no audio. So if you don't want to see any like spoilers for what you can talk to with this girl, don't watch the screen. Go click on another tab. But for now, if you want to see something really, really funny, watch the screen, because I tried to flirt with this girl, because there's a lot of romance options, a lot, and like that older lady I mentioned earlier. And so, like, here I tried to get some, and I kind of failed miserably. So if you want to see how that worked out, go ahead and watch. But people were saying 10-hour tutorial, or does it take a long time to really get started? You know what? As somebody who got to, like, I'm at about the 15-hour mark, it does feel like now the story's really starting to kick up and all of the game mechanics are opened up, and I'm starting to think I know what I'm doing. I'd say at the outset, there is an assumption that you know what you're doing. So for instance, You need to destroy a crate that has like valuables in it to screw over like this big guy on campus. And if you played Origins, you know that you can take a torch that is on fire, of course, and you can light it on fire and it will break. In Odyssey, they never tell you that. They just kind of assume that you'll figure it out, which I also kind of love, because at first it's been a few months since I played Origins last. I wasn't thinking at the outset like, oh yeah, no, I'm totally gonna take my torch and do this. I was like, oh, I'll hack it with my sword. But instead they give you this mechanic and they say, well, you could burn it. So at first I was trying to find a brazier that I could light a fire arrow and light it off with. But instead I had to kind of rethink it and be like, oh, well, yeah, I can use my torch. They didn't necessarily tell me that, but I can use that and that will solve this problem for me. So, it's really impressive. A lot of the music, the soundtrack, I will say, there were multiple times. I was playing this, my buddy Corey, he was sick. If you're watching this, hi Corey. He was sick, and so we were playing this. I had this hooked up to the OLED in the family room. It looks ridiculously good. And we were playing through it, and a lot of the soundtrack, multiple times we caught ourselves saying that sounds like the Witcher soundtrack. A lot of the same instruments, a lot of the same, like I think it's a lyre that they're using for the kind of string pluck music. A lot of it's very, very similar, which I think is really, really interesting, because again, all of this is very intentional, and I think they're very clearly trying to draw to pull a lot of the same stuff that The Witcher did very, very well. They're trying to do themselves. And that's one thing I will say. A lot of the stuff in this game is not completely unique. Okay. So if you're thinking that this is going to be a game that reinvents the wheel, that's not necessarily the case. What it does is it polishes up a wheel that was initially invented and created by like CD Projekt Red. It falls short in a couple spots. There's still some rough patches here and there. The voice acting for the protagonists, Alexios and Cassandra, it's good. It takes like 10 hours to get into Alexios's dialogue. I'm going to skip past this because that's a story bit. It takes a little while to get past that. Like he's very like, oh, well, what are you telling me? Oh, how interesting. I will go and get a boat, and I will go and I shall find my objective so I can take his ship and deal with the Cyclops at the same time. 2 birds, 1 stone. Like, it's very weird, and it takes a little while to get used to. After you get used to it, it's just okay. Like, it's kind of endearing and funny. I'm playing as Alexios and Cassandra. I'm going through 2 playthroughs. Except the more I play, the more I realize how massive this game really is, and I don't know like how I'm going to manage that. Like that this critique's going to take forever if I do that. So I think I'm going to try to get as much of an idea as I can with both characters, but I'm going to side with one and then finish the game out completely with them. Like look how massive this map is. Like that's ridiculous. That is silly. We're in Crazy Town right now. We're in Crazy Town. And yeah, no, it's pretty impressive. I gotta hand it to Ubisoft. They did it very, very well. One of the things I will say that I think is really interesting, and I haven't heard anybody talk about this, but I'm going to talk about it because I'm an individual. One of the most intriguing things in this entire game happened in the first like 30 seconds. Okay, so when you initially start up the game, you go, I guess I could even pull up. I think because I've been filming, one of the nice things about what I do is I record every second of gameplay. And new game. Oh, that's good. That's not good. Oh, if you're prone to seizures, don't look. It's glitching out hardcore. Okay, I don't know what that is. I don't know what's happening. I guess I won't pull it up. Oh well. I hope that's not permanent, because if so, all of that footage is useless. But basically, one of the really, really interesting things that happened was that you go through the initial bit of the story, and then it pulls you out and it says, do you want to play, basically how they pitch it, do you want to play the game the way that you are meant to play it, or the way that you like probably want to play it? And what they mean is, do you want to play the game in a way where we tell you, hey, a character tells you, hey, go to my house, grab like my sword and bring it to my wife because she needs to defend herself while she's out picking berries or something. And in the past, in most games, what they would do, even The Witcher 3, they just put a little dot on your mini map. You go to that dot, you grab it, then you go to the next dot, and that's it. Or in what I believe they call the exploration mode, which is where they give you instructions for every single location that you're supposed to go. So you will say, a character will tell you, hey, go to my house to get my sword. It's just south of the waterfall in Kalia Springs. And so you go and you pull up your map and you find Kalia Springs. You go there, you find a waterfall. You go just south of that and you find a house. You go to the house and then it pops up, says, hey, you found it. So it actually forces you to explore the world the way that I think every game, world game should. And it's something that's so simple, but it's something I talked about once again in my Witcher 3 critique, was that when The Witcher 3 was at its best was when you could go and play through entire missions with all of the UI off, just exploring. So they tell you, yeah, go down the street and it's the third house on the right. Some missions would do that. Not all of them, though. A lot of the side quests did not have it. A lot of the main story quests did. For Odyssey, pretty much every single quest does. You can technically play this game. Of course, there's no mini-map. There's a compass, which is a holdover from Origins, which is a recommendation I made a long time ago, and I'm very glad to see that they went with. And like, this is what's cool. I'm not saying like we had any impact on this, but it's cool to see that all of the things we've been complaining about, all of the recommendations and things we said would work really well in a game like this, they've doubled down and added and implemented, which is just awesome. Like every little teeny tiny thing they've doubled down on. Now, some of the things I don't like in the combat system, how they've really overly simplified, I feel, the power and ability wheel to the left, where now for range stuff, you don't have the same kind of bows in Odyssey or in Origins. You had like basically a shotgun bow, a sniper bow. You had all these bows that did specific things. In this, they're tied to abilities. So you have like a singular bow, and then that bow has abilities that you can impart, and then that bow becomes something else, which is an interesting way to do it. It's a little more grounded than just saying realistically they're going to have 50 different bow and arrows or bows to use. But at the same time, it's like, well, how much of this is really grounded? Do we really need to worry about that? So that's one thing I don't think I'm in love with. I do like how each of the abilities you have to be very conscientious of. So if you want to make your character very reliant on fire damage, you can do that, and you will, line up all of your abilities around that build, and then you will upgrade your character to enhance and to feed into that. Whereas in Origins, it felt like you could be everything. They said it was an RPG, but it kind of had everything. You could have a character with a sword that does all of this damage and armor that deals this damage, and then you have abilities that deal this damage. So it just got very, very overpowered, and you could do whatever. It didn't force you to decide. And one thing I will say is a lot of this stuff in this game, there are like legitimate decisions that have to be made, like for real. A lot of the stuff you will say and do at least 15 hours into the game is already affecting the rest of my gameplay. Like, it already is, which is so impressive. Because even in other RPGs, you'll make a decision, and it's not till like 20, 30 hours later that you'll realize the consequences of your actions. But in this game, it's already hitting me just like 5 hours after I do something. I'm like, oh, right, yeah, I did do that. Or they give you, even more impressively, this is the real kicker, they give you the option to lie about things that you've done. So you can actually tell characters, they'll be like, hey, I need this guy dead, and I'm going to go kill him. And earlier you found that guy, and you can tell them, oh, yeah, no, I found him too, and I killed him so hard. No need to look after him. I killed him so hard. When in reality, you let him go. You didn't kill him. But you can lie to her or him and say that you didn't or did kill them when you didn't, or vice versa. Maybe you did actually kill them, and you can tell that character, oh, no, I totally didn't. yeah, no, go after them. Waste your time. And each of those can be a very calculated and careful decision, which is just so cool. I think that's so, so cool. Is there a carry weight system? Not that I've seen. Not that I've seen. Maybe if there is, 15 hours in, I haven't run into it, which makes me think at that point, what's the point, you know? Let's see. This or Origins? I'm telling you, I'm liking this better. And to be perfectly honest, like Origins did a lot right. But once you sit down and you play this game for about 5 hours or so, you're going to realize every single thing in Origins existed to lay the foundation for this game. Origins was simply, like in many ways, Origins was a proof of concept. It was not a standalone game. And that makes Origins even more impressive, that like even without all of that stuff, it still was that amazing. But yeah, no, it's pretty impressive. I really, really like that. There are multiple endings. I've heard that there's 9 multiple endings or 9 possible endings. I don't know if that's the yeah, park my horse. I don't know if that's the official word. That's what I heard from like GameSpot or some company like that who asked the developers. But I don't know if that's 9 endings per character, so 18. I don't know. I'm not sure. We got to give it some time to let the guys on the wiki figure it out. Yeah, Daniel says you have like 300 inventory slots. Yeah, and at that point, if you have 300 inventory slots, that sounds familiar to me, so I think that's right. That's like you are going to start dismantling gear, because what you can do, you'll have like an extra bow or piece of armor. You can dismantle it, and you'll get equipment and like pieces like wood and rock and gold, whatever, that you use to craft other things, whether it's for your ship, whether it's for your outfit or your armor or your weaponry. You're going to be dismantling a lot of gear that you don't need, that's like level 1, 2, and 3, and that are a few levels below you. As long as you are proactive, which you should be. If you're playing on harder difficulties, you have to be very proactive with this. Even in normal mode, I've tested all of them. Even in normal mode, like you have to be pretty proactive about upgrading, otherwise you get caught. Because really, 1 level above you in terms of difficulty is pretty tough. To go 2 levels above you is really hard, and you basically can't get hit at all, and you have to spend 10 minutes chopping down a brute. 3 levels above you, you basically can't do it. You just can't. Like you'll hack at him and it will take away, I'm not kidding, like probably 1/300th of his health bar. Like even with an awesome sword or axe, it just won't do it. So you have to be very, very careful. Let's see. Which world is better, more fun to explore, Origins or this? I mean, again, I love Origins for being in ancient Egypt, but the world kind of felt dead. And when you got a side quest, the side quest didn't have a story attached to it most of the time. Occasionally you would have a story attached to it, but for the most part, a lot of those side quests were just go here, do this, and then I'll give you something. In this, there's stories attached to it, and usually they're tiered. And I'm not kidding when I say that there's an overwhelming number of them. Like you will run into a city and you will just be surrounded by people that need stuff done and that need help. And every single one of them has a story and a character attached to it. So you have reasons to pursue it. I just last night did another side quest where it was a gentleman who is very distraught, and it starts out with just him needing help gathering some ingredients for a potion, or not a potion. I mean, we're video game nerds, so we call them potions, for like a thing of medicine, right? For like a painkiller. And so you go and you do that, and it seems like just a standard fetch quest. You bring him back to him and he says, oh, can you take them to my clients? I'm so sorry, I'm just very busy. I'll pay you extra. And you can say yes or no. I said yes, because I'm a nice guy. And so I said yes, and I delivered them. And I took them to the clients, and they accepted the gift. And then they said, yeah, no, that gentleman, he's that you're helping out, he's a nice boy. I always wish he found himself a nice girl. You know, I would have really liked for that to happen for him, but he's just never really been interested. I hope he's doing okay. He seems really out of it recently. And you're like, okay, whatever, that was weird. And then you go about your business and they say, yeah, no, he's super anxious. He's been walking around all the time. Make sure he's okay. If he needs any help, just let me know. I can bring him stuff. One guy says he's going to bring him like sweets to try to calm his nerves because the guy's been so stressed out recently. And then they keep going and keep going and keep going. And after you deliver it to all of them, something very weird is going on. You come back, you talk to the guy, and it turns out that there's like multiple levels of things going on. And it started with a simple fetch quest. And then it turns into this whole thing with moral implications where at the end of that quest line, no spoilers, but at the end of that quest line, they ask you to make an intense moral choice that I actually would say falls in to the gray area, which is the ideal spot for these types of things, like where you honestly aren't sure what's right or what's wrong. You can see the argument for both. That's what I wanted out of a game like this. That's what I want out of every RPG, is to force me to go, I don't know. It's all bad or it's all good. And that the game's already done that in its side quests, much less the main quest, which is pretty impressive. Fetch quests, are there a lot of fetch quests in the game? I would not say a lot, and if there are, all the ones I've had turn into something massive that it's almost like they're aware that everybody hates fetch quests, and so they put it there, and then they're like, oh, you thought this was going to be crappy. Oh, well, here we go. Something awesome. And I got to hand it to them. It's really working well. How's it run on PC? Yeah, this is running off of my PC. It runs very, very well. My buddy Michael, who might be watching this as well. Hello, Michael. He's playing this on his Xbox One X on his 4K Vizio TV. And he says that it does not look very good on console, even on the One X, compared to what it looks like on my PC. And bear in mind, this is running, because I have to record the footage, this particular clip was running at 1080p, and it looks like this, which just goes to show, like, so much of visuals is about the actual, like, it's about the settings, it's about God rays, it's about hair, it's about textures. It's not about resolution inherently. It's about so many other things, richness and depth of color. It's really not important what resolution you're doing. As long as it's above 1080p and you're at a normal viewing distance, you should be okay. I also have sold premium TVs as part of my job before, so I rant about this a lot. So, like, if you can play it on PC, play it on PC. The de novo issues that plagued Origins, for those of you who don't remember, Origins, when it launched, had a lot of issues with performance. It was really slow. You had to turn the settings down pretty far to get it to run steadily, primarily just because de novo, which was the anti-piracy software they had to keep people from stealing it, it was really, really slow. And it would plague your system down. See, like, look at this. So this is a perfect example of what I was talking about earlier. So that guy, Marcos, just told us we need to go to the west side of the island because that's where these guys are hanging out that we need to go after for story reasons that I won't spoil. So I'm like, okay, west side of the island. I'm just heading over there. Notice there's no marker on my map. There's nothing telling me, like, you should go there. Yeah, the little stuff they say. The Cyclops lives in Kefalonia. His home is on the west of the cursed valley of Pali. The eye should be inside of the Cyclops lair. So, okay, his lair is on Kefalonia, and it's in the west portion of the cursed valley of Pali. That's all they give you. Then as you get close, you can pull up Icarus, which I love the name, considering your eagle is named Icarus. Like, it's so perfect. I love it probably too much. Do you think it's problematic that they are giving you choices in a game that is basically reliving genetic memories? I will grant you it does not make a lot of sense, but I don't think that's a main concern. Oh, I realized my head was covering that. I'm so sorry. My head was covering the little bullet points that I was talking about. That's awkward. I was reading off of those. I wasn't just spitballing. Let's see. Lots of questions. Thanks, guys. You guys are killing it. Where was I? There was one I wanted to get to that I saw. I don't see it. Oh well. I guess I lost it. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know where it went. I guess I'm going crazy. Hawk was wondering how dense the world is. Are there a lot of enemies or does it feel empty? A lot of it depends on your actions, right? So I'll move the chat so you can see. The mercenary system is back, but it's taken a lot from like Shadow of War. So, and like Shadow of Mordor. So it almost is like a nemesis system. It's almost hilarious how similar it is. Because each of the mercenaries has a name, like I fought Lukos the Cowardly, which I thought was really funny. So I go up against Lukos the Cowardly, and as far as I can tell, there's not a direct like name to like style of fighting or character correlation. I think that's where they're going. Maybe in the next game they'll double down and just fully implement a nemesis system. But it makes sense that there would be bounty hunters that are coming after you, so they would have personalities and they would each have their own way of fighting. And I think that's going to be the real thing they push. For those of you not aware, next year they've said they're not releasing another Assassin's Creed game, but instead they're going to double down on support for this game. And what that seems to me is that they're going to hold off till next gen consoles, and when those consoles come out, they're going to just go ham. So we're probably going to get another reinvented game, which I'm ready for. I've not encountered the glitched cult members. And as for how dense the world is, because that was the original question. So the more crap you do, the more damage you cause and chaos you wreak, the higher the bounties will get, to the point where you can have 5 of these mercenaries coming after you at a time. And these mercenaries will come to forts when the brazier is lit. They'll come and hunt you down. They'll be walking around the world by themselves. You have incentive to hunt them down before they hunt you down as well. But it's business. They're only really interested in it for the money. So you can kill off the person who's paying the bounty, because you can find the person who's paying your bounty in the world. It'll be like a soldier or some dude running a vineyard somewhere, and he put up like 1,000 drachmi for your head. And so at that point, for whatever reason, and so at that point you can actually pursue him, find him, off him, and then that bounty closes because nobody's going to pay it. So why would the bounty hunter have any reason to pursue it? Which makes so much sense. Is it a good stealth game? It doesn't really push stealth a lot. There's been a couple missions where they said you should try to do this stealthily as you can, because to do this chaotically will end badly. But they give you the support, and they laid the foundation. So if you do play it really poorly and you screw it up, like, you will just go right into combat. And luckily the combat system is fairly robust. It takes a little getting used to. If you were playing a lot of Origins before you come over to this game, you're going to have a little bit of a hard time adjusting. That was another thing Michael, the guy playing it on the Xbox, he ran into, because when you get really used to the control system, to the swapping between bows, that sort of thing in Origins, it's going to be a little bit of a shock to the system. But if you've taken a couple months off or longer, you'll be fine. The combat system is really well done. The hitbox issues are greatly improved. There's a new long hold dodge button, so you actually can do a long roll. If you tap it, you do a quick little roll out, and then if you hold it, you do a long roll, which for some opponents is really, really helpful. World scale, I would say it's realistically big. to an extent. Like it does feel like a collection of mini islands. But it doesn't feel condensed. Like one of my big issues with Fallout 4 was that the world very clearly felt like a miniature Boston. Like it felt like a video game version of Boston. It didn't feel like Boston. This feels like a bunch of islands in the Mediterranean with ruins of past great civilizations. And I freaking love it. Dense in terms of density, it really is. It's well done. It's balanced well. There's always something to find. And when there's a side quest, there's a story attached to it. So it's not this mindless, because it's one thing to just run around and sort of like Destiny. You're just getting more gear and better gear because you want more and better gear. And that's really the only reason you're doing anything. In this, every reason, like every time you go and do something, there's a purpose behind it. And I think that's just so well done. You also steal stuff. You can't just loot everybody's chests in their homes. It actually is considered theft. And if you steal stuff, it can, like all the villagers will come after you. They'll go and they'll grab swords and start chasing you down. It's actually really funny. Are there large structures or tombs or the equivalents to explore here? I don't want to get into spoilers, but yes and no. Like in Origins, in Egypt, like the tombs are such a huge part of Egyptian history that like you kind of have to have it. In Greece, one of the big things was the statues were the gods and the myths, right? So in this, there's gigantic statues that are scattered throughout the world. And some of them have fallen over and are like the ground has overcome them. So now it's just like hands and like little bits poking out. And initially you might mistake it for a rock formation, but if you're really watching, you can see all sorts of craziness, which I think is really cool. Let's see. Yeah, there's a few tombs. What was another one? Do your choices in gameplay have an impact on the narrative or no? Yeah, a lot of your choices do have an impact on the small scale and the large scale. You can have now you can officially fail quests. Like they don't stop you. I was playing a quest and this guy asked me to help defend him against a bunch of people that were coming after him. I said, okay. So I went and the guys came and attacked us, chopped him up, killed him. This is how I chop people, apparently. I chopped him up, and I accidentally nicked the guy that paid me, and he got ticked off and started attacking me, so I killed him. And instead of saying mission failed, which is what it would have done in Origins or any of the other games, it said quest failed. And then it didn't do anything. The game kept going. And it was just like this. There was like a goat walking by. It was whatever. And that's what I've been waiting for. Like, it allows you to screw up, which is such a stupid little thing to say, but it allows you to screw up. And when that is tied together, it works so well. Boat gameplay. Thank you, Xavier. That's a very good question because we haven't talked about that at all. Ships make a huge return in this. So in Origins, they're in a couple of scenes, but primarily you're running around with little boats, and that's about it. In this game, navigation between these islands is a huge deal, and they know it's a huge deal. So you actually have a ship that you go and sail all around the world, the game world. So you're going through and you're sailing, and as you go, you upgrade it, and they have a new lieutenant system. So as you discover people in side quests, you can actually befriend them and ask them if they want to come and join your crew, in which case they will join your crew. And so when you like go and attack a ship and then you board a ship, they can come. So for instance, I got one of those mercenaries. I knocked him out. I choked him out. And then I asked him if he wanted to join my crew, and it worked. He decided to join. And now he helps me whenever I board an enemy ship and try to take it over. And like, it's just so cool. And he's really good because he's like a mercenary, you would expect him to be really good at fighting. He sure is, even in the boat sequences, which is really, really cool. Are the islands too small? Not that I've seen. There's a couple that are really, really small, but you can tell they exist. Just like in Black Flag, those little islands existed just to hold crap, like special treats. But usually they put on like some crazy like lions. There was a smaller island I found, and there were a bunch of like level 45 lions. And I was like, okay, yeah, no, I'm not meant to be here yet. And I threw a couple of my strongest arrows and fire arrows and stuff at them. It didn't do anything, and they could have one-shotted me. So I was out. I was out there. I don't know how lions got on that island, but I feel bad because there was no food at all. Games are far too rewarding anymore. It's good this one is making the effort to say, no, you failed to go home. I absolutely agree. Absolutely agree. Because I think we're too coddled. We're so used to just being like, good job, here's some rewards. Do you want to buy some microtransaction, whatever stuff? Like, it's just so stupid. It really is. Yeah, I'm a thirsty boy. I'm a thirsty boy today. Yeah, no, this game is really impressing me. I'm honestly not sure how I'm going to finish it before Red Dead comes out. Because I know when Red Dead comes out, I'll need to play Red Dead. But I don't know how I'm going to do it. Because this game is massive. It is crazy how big this thing is. That's what she said. Let's see. Will this game be able to hold me all the way to RDR2? Oh, yeah. No, I have no doubt. I have no doubt. I've tried both characters, yep. Are the chest micros intrusive or not? No, they're actually very, very small. So they're in the same way that Origins had kind of this mini lottery system. It is a late game thing. I actually do agree with them because the currency you need for it is this super rare rock or mineral that you can find in the game world, but it's super hard to find until you get to really high level areas. Once you get those really high level areas and you go and you loot some of that, you can spend like 20 pieces of that material to unlock a chest or a crate that gives you like a legendary or greater weapon. And it's just kind of a roll of the dice as to what it's going to give you. And part of it, yeah, is if people really want to speed up their progress, you could theoretically buy a chunk of those with real money and then go and just run the chest a bunch of times. But I am telling you, it is buried in the menus. Like, you have to look up, how can I spend money to progress faster? And then you could find out. It is not easy to do. It really is difficult. And they do not push it in your face. Even in Origins, one of the first things that popped up on the menu was about microtransactions and season pass stuff. I haven't had that happen once. They've been very, very discreet about it. Horse testicles in RDR. Nice. Nice. It's good. I'm at the same time, I should be surprised. Like, that should be a shocking thing. But it's not. It's Rockstar. Like, it's not really that surprising. Let's be real. Let's be honest with ourselves. How's the story, my dude? Asks Jack, and Ben asks, is the conversation choice as simple as good or bad option, or is there some depth there? It actually tends to fall closer to like Horizon Zero Dawn, where there's sort of a loving choice, an emotional choice, and then like a stern or just choice. And then there's the kind of goofy, cast it aside, I don't care, apathetic side. But in Horizon, it was really weird because like you only had 3 questions asked of you the entire game, and it never made a difference. Like, it never did anything. It was like they started the game when they were developing it and said, okay, we're going to ask these questions and you're going to have dialogue options. And then they forgot for like 4 years while they made the game. That's honestly what it felt like. In this, there are actual choices. So like, when you're flirting with an individual, like I was flirting with this girl, and it was like goofy and silly and weird, and I was doing it in a very, very straightforward and like super blunt way, and she loved it. But then I tried that for another person later in the game. Did not work. They immediately shut me down and walked away. And so you actually have to change your tactics and try some other stuff. which is cool. Favorite weapon type? I'm simple. I like a sword or the 2 daggers. I like getting in, getting out very quick. That's what she said. PC optimization, it's really, really well done. Like I was saying, the de novo stuff is not bad. I can't even really tell that it's there. It is clear, like, there are a couple of frame dips here and there, but I fully expect those to be in the day 1 patch tomorrow. Yeah, no, it is very, very similar to Origins. A lot of the After Effects and post-processing effects, the fog, water, all of that stuff has been improved. And then, of course, scenes like this. Every conversation you have is going to have animations and a camera system like this, which was one of the big missing things from Origins, because they would just kind of set you and you would control the camera yourself. It wouldn't swap models, so it'd be the gameplay model with like the type of lip sync. Looked terrible. In this, even the side quests are going to have cutscenes like these, so significantly improved. Hi Brody, you can get a shout out. What's up? Yeah, people care about AC lore. Since when? That's funny. That's funny. Is this the first game that doesn't feature an assassin or the assassin symbol? It's actually kind of funny because, like, at the end of Origins, they implied that the entire reason that they used the symbol for the Assassin's Creed that they did was because, like, the skull of a bird or whatever fell down. Like, that was it. But, like, for this, I don't know. I guess Leonidas's spear looks kind of the same way, but I would agree it's kind of buried. I don't know. Maybe they get to it eventually. Maybe there is some reason, but I don't know how they would tie that with Origins, because in Origins they kind of made it seem like like an accident, just a coincidence. Like, oh, that looks kind of cool. I guess we'll use that. Do I like Alexios or Cassandra more? It helps me to get into the game more with Alexios. It just does. With Cassandra, it can work, but I do have to suspend my disbelief a little bit more, because there's a few times, at least in the first couple hours, that I've run into where it doesn't seem to really make sense. Like, I'm kind of like, would that have happened though? Would that have happened? I'm not sure. Is there any explanation of how you can do the leap of faith in this game? You just push forward and hold shift, or if you're on a console, it's just a free running button and you move forward. There's no like trigger, right bumper A and push the stick forward. Like, it's not that hard. It's more like you're sitting on this thing and then it does the math and figures out what would be the optimal way to do it. Can an NPC find out that you lied to them? I'm not crazy far in the story, but already I have had a bluff called on me. Yeah, I did try to lie to somebody, and it did not work. But the ship stuff, we were talking about the ship stuff, Falkire, which I think is the other thing that I got distracted on. But the ship combat has been altered also. Of course, we're dealing in the age of like bow and arrows and spears and stuff. So it's not the same as like Black Flag when we got cannons. So it's a much more close combat system. It relies heavily on like ramming, but you use paddlers to ram. But your boat is always moving forward, but it's not. But you can use like the wind to also speed you up. It's not very clearly communicated. And that's one thing I will say. There's no real tutorial for this game. A lot of the stuff in here, they just assume you're going to figure out, which for better or worse, that can be good at times. A lot of games do that sort of thing and just kind of leave you to figure it out yourself. But in this game, it really doesn't tell you how to use your stuff. And so a lot of that is just left up to you figuring out how to do it. And how best to do it. I hope they have Greek fire. Oh yeah, no, maybe that's an upgrade later on. I don't actually know. That'd be really, really cool if they did though. Does it bother you that you can't die from fall damage anymore? You always survive with a small amount of health. I mean, I think it's their way of fixing and adjusting for the inevitability that we've all been there when you're playing an Assassin's Creed game. You climb up a really tall building or tower or tree or mountain, and then you try to turn around and instead Alexios decides to jump off to his death. Like, it's happened to all of us. It just happens. And I think it's their way of just accounting for that. It doesn't really break me out. Like Spider-Man, same thing. There's no fall damage. It's more just like, is that going to get in the way of the fun for everybody? I would say so. Like more often than not, it's going to lead to frustration. Yeah, every once in a while I might fall down and be like, hey, that should have killed me. That's a little immersion breaking, but I'm going to go about my way. And I think that's better than I was trying to turn around and then he jumped off, died. I have to restart the mission. So I think it actually ends up being a net positive, even if it is sort of annoying in the short term. Yeah, side quests. If you just popped in, Russell, talked a little bit about those. Side quests are greatly improved. I mean, my favorite so far was that I went and this old lady wanted to. Well, was there another one that I could share? Because I've already talked about that. I don't know. That's the first one that comes to mind. This old lady wanted like something to boost her her husband's stamina in the bedroom because he couldn't keep up with her. And they're like both 60, 70 years old. So she's kind of a cougar mom. Yeah, so I go and I get the stuff for the elixir or whatever, and she mixes it, tries to give it to the husband. The husband doesn't want to take it because he's like, you're going to kill me. I can't do this anymore. My body is breaking. And then Alexios, you can either like take your money, go about your day, tell him to get over it. Like they give you some options. But I chose to say, well, why don't you let me satisfy you? And she was like, okay, I've never been with a mercenary before. So she takes you into the house, and then like, the day-night cycle runs like twice, so it looks like you're in there for like 2 days. And finally Alexios comes out and is like, yeah, no, that should hold her over for a while and that should be good. It was really weird, but like that's something that you would have never seen before, and it's really well done. How big are the cities? I wouldn't say as big as Alexandria, at least so far. I haven't come across anything. They're more like, again, think more Black Flag or Rogue. It's a lot of smaller settlements in a Mediterranean setting, so a lot of islands, but there's no like docks, there's no loading stations. You just like, I could hop out on my big ship in the middle of the ocean and I could try to swim back to shore. It would be a bad idea because sharks would probably get me, but you can do it. There's also timed quests as well, which I'm not sure how I feel about, but like, for instance, you can go up to a lady and she says, hey, my husband went out. I told him not to go out late at night, but he did. And I think there's sharks around. Could you just go and try to find him before it's too late? And there's an actual clock, and it gives you like 24 real world hours to find her husband before it's too late. So like, you can't just dilly dally and then 50 hours down the road, like in 3 months, come and find him. It's not like that. So I actually think it works. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that yet. I got to think about that some more. What did you think of the Plague Quest if you did it? Which one was that? Was that the one with the sick villagers? Might be. From your experience so far, how much do you feel this game is trying to be The Witcher 3? Pretty hard, but I get like, to suggest that that's inherently a bad thing, I don't think is a bad thing at all. Like The Witcher 3 is, for a lot of us, our favorite game of all time. And so if this game can even get close to that, it's set up to be a pretty amazing game just by itself. But the reality is, like, just straightforward and honestly, it does a lot of stuff that The Witcher 3, at the time it came out back in 2015, just couldn't do quite as well. CD Projekt Red had navigation and movement issues that is completely fixed in a game that's made by Ubisoft. They just have the software, they have the free running systems, they have the animation systems. All of that just works way, way better. And they can go much, much larger as well. The graphics are also better. Like, they do a lot of stuff that is just empirically and objectively better. But there's also stuff that The Witcher 3 did, which no game has come close to doing. So it's a little bit of this, a little bit of that, you know? Yes, this game's like streaming system is really impressive. The fact that they can just move from sailing to to land to combat to, like, you can be fighting on the sea and then jump over to an enemy ship, start fighting hand-to-hand combat on that ship, and then jump onto an island, fight there, then jump right back on the ship and head out to sea, like without ever needing any load screens. And then you jump over to a city, then you go in a cave, and you know, you'll be exploring, you find a shipwreck, and then you find a cave by the shipwreck, you go in that cave, and then you find another cave, and in that cave there's a bunch of really high-end loot and a bunch of weird inscriptions on the wall. It's so well done. It really is, because it makes you, once you establish that with the player, it just has to happen once. It just has to happen once where the player says, oh crap, if that's out there and I just stumbled into this, I wonder what else I could find if I just looked. And that's why all of this has to be built that way, with the intention of, okay, yeah, no, as I explore, I'm going to be looking for this, this, and this, and I'm not going to give exact directions. I'm going to make people look for certain locations, instead of giving them, like, holding their hand all the way. And that's the big thing, that this is one of the first Ubisoft games that I don't feel is holding my hand excessively. Origins didn't hold your hand a lot, but it still did at times. This game really doesn't, and I think it works really, really well. And there's also just, there's so much. And maybe I'll come back next week with another 20 hours and I'll be like, not really impressed. But as of right now, I'm very pleased. Let's see, what's your impression of the level system for enemies and missions so far? It's sturdy. It's unforgiving. Like, if you are 2 levels under, the game, the mission is going to be so difficult, it's probably not worth the time of trying to push through it. If you're 3 levels under, you're not going to get through it. No matter how good you are, the gear just isn't there. It's just, it won't work. 1 level beneath you can do, but it's going to be a hassle. And I think that's good because it forces you to level up. But there have been many times so far, like probably 6 or 7 times already, that I've encountered where I've had to stop what I'm doing, like stop a main quest series, because I wanted to level up, because I was 1 level beneath. And it will take like 45 minutes for me to finish doing the quest to finish leveling up. And it doesn't feel like a chore. That sounds like a bad thing. It doesn't feel like a chore. I don't feel like I'm being forced to. So it's actually really, really well done. And again, like I said, this might change. I'm only 15 hours in. Might change. But by next week's show, when we can talk about this, we can sit down and go through all of this. Bixby is trying to talk to me. Every show, Bixby starts talking to me. I don't know. I can't even. So, yeah. No, once people play it, I think it'll be really interesting. I really want to hear what you guys think of it once you get the chance to go through it. But it's pretty damn impressive. I mean, when Carrick likes an Assassin's Creed game, you know you're dealing with something good. I mean, I loved Origins. He hated Origins, and he like can't stop playing this game, which I think is good. I freaking love Carrick. He's a good guy. Any other closing thoughts? I've actually got, so if you're in northern Colorado or nearby, I will be in Frankenstein in actually towards the end of this month is when we open at the Lincoln Center here in northern Colorado, and it's going to be pretty cool. It's the same script that Benedict Cumberbatch did at the National Theater. And it's really, really good. So yeah, no, that'll be fun. I just threw it out there. The reason I'm throwing that out there is because I've got to go to a costume fitting in like 13 minutes. So that's what I'm doing. What are you doing? Get on my level. Thank you all for coming out. This was super fun. I'm so sorry about the technical issues. We're going to try to get it fixed up as soon as possible. I am working on the next video. It's slow progress, but you know what? You can't rush. Pretty good. I was going to say perfection, but that sounded kind of crude. So I was like, you can't rush average. But thank you all for coming out. It's going to be good fun. And for those of you who want to listen to the show on the go, you can do that. It's on iTunes. Just search Talk Gaming. It'll show up. It's also on SoundCloud. The links to everything is also, they're down below in the description box. So if you want to check those out, go ahead. I'll try to get those posted for this episode as soon as I can. But with all that said, thank you guys for watching. I honestly love you. I deeply care for you. You guys are bae. Keep it Gucci. Keep it strong. And I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye. Peace out. Hugs and kisses. Bye. Wow, straight blackout. That was intense.